You know that feeling, right? That big family event. Maybe it's a wedding. Could be a reunion. Everyone gathers.
Oh, yeah.
And suddenly, it's not just about, the party. Old tensions just sort of bubble up.
Always.
Surprising secrets spill out. Maybe someone unexpected shows up, bringing, like, a stray pet or something.
Ah, yes. A little extra chaos.
Exactly. It's messy. It can be hilarious, sometimes heartbreaking, but it's just so human. Have you ever had a family gathering just turn into that kind of wild ride?
I think everyone probably has, in some way or another.
Well, today we're doing a deep dive into a book that absolutely nails that messy, wonderful feeling. We're unpacking Ann Tyler's acclaimed novel, 3 Days in June.
Great book.
We've pulled together summaries, looked at reviews, character analyses, basically giving you a shortcut to understanding this story people are calling quietly magical.
And our mission here is really to pull out the most important bits. The structure, these fascinating characters, and the really profound themes she explores.
We want to show you why a story that spans just 3 days can actually reveal some extraordinary truths about, relationships.
Exactly. How so much can happen in such a short time.
Okay, let's get into it. First, maybe a little bit about Ann Tyler herself.
Sure. She's a giant, really. Pulitzer Prize winner.
Right. Celebrated for these incredibly observed family stories, often set in Baltimore.
Very Baltimore.
And 3 Days in June is her latest, just out February 11th, 2025. And it's short, a compact 176 pages from Knopf.
Yeah, that's classic Tyler, isn't it? Packing so much insight into a relatively small space, she doesn't waste words.
Not at all.
Yeah.
And the structure you mentioned is really interesting.
It really is. The whole book takes place over exactly 3 days, consecutive days.
Day before, day of, day after the wedding.
Precisely. And it's all told from the perspective of Gail Baines, the protagonist, who's 61.
And that tight focus, you're saying, it actually allows for more depth.
Absolutely. It's not a limitation. It forces everyone, especially Gail, to confront things past, present, right there, in the moment. It makes it incredibly intimate.
Okay, so let's meet Gail Baines. Who is she when we first meet her right before this wedding weekend kicks off?
Gail is, she's fascinatingly precise. Meticulous is a good word. Socially quite reserved.
And she's the assistant headmistress at a girls' school in Baltimore.
That's right. She likes order. Things just so.
But things aren't just so for her professionally, are they?
No, right before the wedding, she gets this really unexpected blow. She's passed over for promotion. Basically, it feels like a dismissal.
Oh, wow. Talk about bad timing.
Exactly. It's like Tyler's deliberately setting her up, shaking up her carefully ordered world right before the family storm hits.
And speaking of storms, Max arrives.
Ah, Max. Yes. Cue the disruption.
Tell me about him. He sounds like the complete opposite of Gail.
Pretty much. He's her ex-husband. And where she's reserved and structured, he's affable, spontaneous.
And boundary challenged, I think was the phrase.
That's a good way to put it, yeah. He literally just lands on her doorstep.
Just shows up.
Just shows up. With a foster cat, no less.
A foster cat?
And wait for it, no wedding clothes.
Oh my God. Seriously. For his daughter's wedding.
Yep. So his arrival, on top of Gail's job news, it immediately cranks up the tension. You've got all this history bubbling up right alongside her current crisis. Classic Tyler setup.
Okay, so Gail's already kind of reeling from the job thing. Max is there adding his unique brand of chaos. Now we hit day 2, the wedding day itself.
Right, the main event.
And things really escalate here, don't they? There's a bombshell.
Oh, it's a big one. The bride, their daughter Debbie.
Yeah.
Right in the middle of everything, she reveals that her fiancé, Kenneth, might have cheated on her.
On the wedding day.
Oh, no.
I mean, talk about throwing a grenade into the proceedings.
Yeah.
So now Gail and Max, who are already navigating their own stuff,
suddenly have this huge new problem to deal with together.
Exactly. How do they handle this? What do they tell Debbie? It forces them to confront their own past, too. And the book uses flashbacks here, I read, to connect this present crisis with their past.
It does, yeah. As Gail is trying to process Debbie's situation, her thoughts drift back. We get these glimpses into her 21-year marriage with Max.
And what do we see there?
We see the clash, her need for structure, her rigidity bumping up against his carefree way of being, his spontaneity.
So it puts Gail in a really tough spot.
Absolutely. It's this central conflict for her. Does she push for the wedding to go ahead, maybe sweep this under the rug, or does she try to protect Debbie from potentially making a huge mistake, repeating maybe some past patterns?
Wow. So much nuance, like you said.
Very Ann Tyler, no easy answers.
Okay, so despite all this, The wedding does happen.
It does. The wedding proceeds.
So what happens on day 3? The aftermath. What's the focus then, especially between Gail and Max?
Well, the focus shifts inward, I think. It's less about the big drama and more about the quiet moments between Gail and Max. It's not about grand declarations. It's the subtle stuff. Glances, shared memories, maybe unspoken understandings as they confront their history, their complicated feelings.
And this is where Gail starts to change a bit.
Yeah, you see her begin to recognize the limits of her own emotional defenses,
Yeah.
her walls. The sources called it a subtle thaw of her guarded self.
A thaw. I like that.
And it's beautifully symbolized, actually. Remember the foster cat Max brought?
The one he showed up with, yeah.
Gail ends up adopting the cat.
Really? After all her talk about order.
Exactly. It's not just about getting a pet. It represents her finally accepting, maybe even embracing a little bit of life's messiness, moving away just slightly from that lifelong need for perfect control.
That's actually quite profound, in a very quiet way.
That's Tyler's magic, I think.
Okay, so we've walked through the plot, the 3 days. But to really get this book, we need to look closely at the people.
Right.
And the big ideas.
Definitely. Let's quickly recap the main players. You've got Gail, our narrator, meticulous, reserved, grappling with control and vulnerability. Then Max, the charming, spontaneous ex who disrupts everything but also brings warmth.
The catalyst, in a way.
In many ways. Then Debbie, the bride, whose crisis forces her parents to reflect. And Kenneth, the groom, whose actions or alleged actions drive that central conflict about trust.
Got it. So those characters help us see the core themes Tyler's exploring. What are the big ones?
Well, the first one that really jumps out is what you mentioned, that quiet emotional growth.
Yeah, it's not some huge dramatic transformation for Gail.
Exactly. Tyler shows that real growth, lasting change often happens subtly. It's finding strength in being a bit vulnerable, maybe, facing discomfort quietly.
It suggests our biggest shifts can happen internally, almost unseen.
It's a powerful idea. Transformation isn't always loud.
And that ties into the next theme, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Family and forgiveness.
Oh, absolutely. This book is just a masterclass in showing that complex dance, the love, the tension, the grudges, but also the forgiveness that's so necessary in long-term relationships, especially family.
It doesn't shy away from the difficult parts.
Not at all, but it ultimately underlines the strength of those bonds, however frayed they get.
Which leads to another classic Tyler theme. Finding ordinary life, extraordinary truths.
Yes, she's brilliant at this, showing how profound insights are often just hidden in the everyday stuff, the mundane moments.
Finding beauty in the routine, the small details.
Well, it's a reminder for us, maybe, to pay more attention to those moments in our own lives. That's where the meaning often is.
And what about how Gail tells the story? There's something about unreliable self-narration.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Because we're seeing everything through Gail's eyes, her internal monologue.
Right.
You see moments where she's maybe kidding herself a little, trying to fit things into her orderly view. But you also see surprising honesty, moments where she confronts uncomfortable truths about herself and her past.
It makes you think about how we all narrate our own lives, doesn't it? What stories do we tell ourselves?
Exactly. Are we seeing things clearly?
And lastly, the writing style itself. It's almost a theme in its own right.
You could say that. It's described as subtle, warm. The dialogue feels so natural.
Gentle humor, insightful observations.
It just pulls you in. You feel like you're right there in the room with them.
So with all that depth packed into a short novel, it makes sense that the critics really loved it.
They really did. The praise was pretty strong across the board.
The Times called it quietly magical. A combination of sharpness, tenderness, mild satire. That sounds about right.
It does. And the Washington Post said it's a svelte, finely constructed novel, a story of self-sufficient loneliness that finally gives in.
Gives in. That speaks to Gail's thaw.
I think so. And there was more praise, too, highlighting different facets.
What else stood out?
The CS Monitor called it funny and touching, like a box of chocolates with no duds, which I think captures that mix of humor and heart.
Nice. No duds.
The Guardian praised its wisdom, calling it a wise and wonderful account of infidelity, focusing on that core issue, but in this compact, honest way. And Publishers Weekly summed it up nicely. Messy human relationships are proven to be worth the trouble.
That feels like the core message, doesn't it? Worth the trouble.
I think it is.
These reviews really show why such a seemingly small story, just 3 days, leaves such a big impact. It proves you don't need epic scope for profound insights.
Sometimes the most resonant truths about love, family, forgiveness They come from these very ordinary, contained moments, like a family wedding weekend.
So who would you say this book is really for?
Well, if you enjoy character-driven literary fiction, stories with real emotional nuance, a bit of humor, that charm of everyday life, then 3 Days in June is just a gem.
Gentle but powerful.
Exactly. And at only 176 pages, it's not a huge time commitment, but it's incredibly moving. A deep dive into family, forgiveness, and just the subtle complexities of relationships that last a long time.
It stays with you, sounds like.
It definitely does.
So a final thought for everyone listening.
Yeah.
Maybe consider this. What are the 3 days in your own life? Those short periods that maybe unexpectedly shifted your perspective or changed a key relationship.
Interesting question.
And maybe think about Gail. How might embracing just a little more of life's inherent messiness lead to your own quiet emotional growth? Something to mull over.